As the year comes to an end, it's that time again where people make lists, reflect on the past year, and look forward to the next. I'm Ruben Saras. This is my quick take on what happened and what I hope will happen in the coming months ahead of us. 2025 started off a bit weird. CIG announced a different direction, one of stability and playability, and not pushing out that many new features in favor of fixing problems we've all encountered many times in the past. And it helped. We saw a massive uptick in players who were returning daily or weekly to the game because we didn't crash as often as we used to. Server meshing has helped a tremendous amount with being able to just continue playing the past year. But to say we didn't get any new features or content would be a misunderstanding. And this is one of the biggest reasons why players kept coming back so often in 2025. CIG introduced a lot of new content this year. Sandbox gameplay like the Hathor and ASD sites, Onyx facilities, and more. It was a welcome addition in my opinion, and each has a chain of missions you need to complete before reaching the end goal. Especially the ASD storyline with Dr. Logan Jorrit, going over multiple patches and many locations throughout the verse, and even introducing the Vanduul into Star Citizen. Eventually leading us to the newest system introduced this December, Nyx. A system long awaited by many players because of Levski. And I must say, I now understand why people call it their home. Levski has such a different vibe than any other previous location. It feels much more lifted, more harsh, and real in some ways. I think the devs did a fantastic job making it feel so different than anything else, and I can't wait to see what they will do with other new locations later in the development. CIG also introduced a brand new merchantman called Wicklow. This scam lord would change things up quite a bit. In exchange for sourced goods from sandbox activities like Hathor, ASD, Onyx, and more, he is offering a variety of goods like armor sets, props, weapons, and ships. These ships were all featuring a special component loadout and even have their own Wicklow-themed paints applied to it. These were real collector's items, earnable without spending any real money on them. Later in the year, CIG said that some ships will not be sold in the traditional ship shops in-game, like New Deal and Astro Armada, but will instead only be obtainable through gameplay and dealers like Wicklow. Not everyone was happy with that statement, because that meant you had to do very specific types of gameplay to be able to unlock certain ships, gameplay that some would normally not be interested in. We'll have to see how this will eventually turn out, though after Star Citizen hits 1.0. The latest addition with Alpha 4.5 that recently deployed is the Aegis Idris, a ship many people were looking forward to. I personally think it's a good idea to put these behind a bit of a grind, just because the verse would otherwise be flooded with these massive capital ships. The only problem at the moment is that if you have bad luck, these ships won't carry over to the next patch. They should, like the ships you earn from the contested zones, but the LTP database for some reason still can't remember it correctly for some players, and they will lose their hard-earned rewards when a new patch is deployed to the live servers. We also saw a number of in-game events like the Resource Drive and Save Stanton, which were all story-driven events, which could be tied back to one of the other stories being told throughout the year. There were a lot of paints, armor sets, guns, and tools to be unlocked with these events, which were permanently added to your account. We had one big problem though, the cargo elevators at outposts. Because these events were mainly cargo focused, we ran into a lot of problems where the cargo elevators at outposts would break. There were multiple causes for this, and CIG was tracking all the data from the events to see what the underlying issues were. And as it turns out, these underlying issues were so massive that they could not be fixed during these events or even in 2025. I don't remember the exact details, but they made a whole video and Spectrum post about them because it was so extensive. Somehow, many of us still managed to move an ungodly amount of cargo for all factions and secured all the rewards that were obtainable. The Resource Drive was probably the most painful event I've ever participated in so far, but the ship paints made it worth it. Talking about ships, we got a lot of them this year. Small ships, like the recently added RSI Salvation, all the way up to the massive capital class with the Aegis Idris. Some more useful than others, but overall a very solid lineup if you ask me. And the best thing? CIG doesn't want to do concepts anymore, with the exception to the promised battlecruiser, which we'll hear more of at Invictus 2956. There won't be any new concept sales anymore. It's a big change, but for the good, because there will always be disappointed people when they grab a concept ship and it changes during the actual production. On the other hand, waiting and anticipating a big ship release can also have its own charm, but I don't think the disappointed backers outweigh at this point. Some of my own personal favorites this year were the Anvil Asgard, Kruger Alpha Wolf, and the RSI Perseus. We really saw the ship team progress and deliver some of the most detailed and well-made ships to date. The interior of the Perseus is extremely good in my opinion. They took the lessons and critique from the Polaris and made sure that the Perseus didn't feel the same way. The lighting, signage and layout are very well thought out and make it easy to traverse the ship. In terms of paints, we also saw a lot of stunning designs this year. I'm especially a big fan of the full paint lineup for the Wolf series. You can always check out my paint videos to see everything that is available for these new ships. And while we're here, I want to thank everyone who watched those videos over the past year. The channel has grown and I got a lot of positive comments. There was also feedback, which I tried to implement as best as I could, of course. The main goal for 2026 for my own channel will be to reach a monetization status and get a new GPU to shoot content in 4K for you all, because many people have requested that in the past months. The end of the year saw a long-awaited feature finally coming to the live environment, engineering. While this is still new and an early implementation, you can already tell it's going to have a big impact on how people will play the game and choose which ship they will take for certain activities. This is also the time to give your feedback about it to the developers, as this is a very important part of gameplay and it can still be molded by the backers and developers to make it something that we can all appreciate and it doesn't just become one massive time-consuming thing that is added to all our gameplay loops. I personally can't give a good opinion on engineering yet, mainly because I haven't used it that much so far and also because I don't completely know everything about it. I might do my own review about that next year, but feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments below the video. The only thing I know is that it will impact your choices and maybe even which ships you will decide to pledge on the store. What might have come as one of the biggest surprises this year is the early experimental implementation of VR support for Star Citizen. This is a passion project on which some of the Star Citizen developers worked in their own free time. At first I was very skeptical about this, because I didn't think this would need to be implemented before the game hit the 1.0 release. But the more I read, hear and see about it, I think it's an actual game changer for how people will enjoy and immerse themselves in the game. We know there aren't a huge amount of AAA games out with VR support. This might even attract a whole new slew of players to Star Citizen. And since this has been worked on outside of company time, it didn't really hurt development of the game as a whole, but did add something beautiful for players to experience. The only problem now is that feeling of not having a VR setup to see and enjoy this with them. I'll personally hold off for a while, as I cannot justify such a purchase at the moment, but it is definitely something I want to experience in the future. Now to look at the coming year, and let's start with the elephant in the room, Squadron 42. I am a firm believer that Squadron 42 will still release in 2026. Chris Roberts himself confirmed it once again in the letter of the chairman he just posted last week. If he would still have doubt, would he post that? He also mentioned that the game was now fully playable from beginning to end. I think the promo time for Squadron will be short, but we'll see it pop up everywhere on the internet and maybe even outside of it in the real world. People have the attention span of a hamster these days, so this might even work better than starting an ad campaign a year before release. I also believe that CIG wants to keep the way they operate currently with patch cycles. Maybe not as fast-paced as in 2025 as Jared already mentioned, but still a good amount of updates throughout the year, instead of the old 4 major patches we saw earlier in the development cycle. In a recent Star Citizen Live episode with the ship team, they also announced quite a bit of information about the upcoming year. We already know we're getting more info and possibly concept sale of the long-awaited battlecruiser. We also know we're getting an RSI Aurora Mark II, the Kruger Stingray, which I'm very excited for myself, and that the RSI Galaxy will be the main release event for IAE next year. Furthermore, they talked about the Anvil Auxilia, a ground vehicle based on the Anvil Atlas platform that is basically a clipper on the ground, including a crafter, tier 2 medbed and more. We also know of the Consolidated Outland Forge, which is probably not the final name, but this ship will also be able to craft items and have ground resource extraction capabilities like the Pioneer. We're also going to see another long-awaited concept ship, the Misk Hull B, which has grown in size and now has a cargo capacity of 512 SCU, where it previously was 384 SCU. Maybe even more anticipated are the Drake Ironclads, which will both release in 2026. And my guess is that it will be during Drake DefenseCon at Invictus Launch Week. In 2025, DefenseCon got cancelled, and we got a note that said, "We'll be back next year, bigger than ever." And that is when I already thought they would release the Ironclads during the next DefenseCon. The Drake Kraken is also in development, but due to its size, I don't see that coming in 2026. Now, to look at some of the gameplay and systems we'll most likely see added in the upcoming year, Chris mentions things like the inventory overhaul, crafting, and social tools in his letter of the chairman, all of which are very welcome additions. The inventory systems are very outdated and people have been excited about the previously shown work-in-progress pictures of the rework. Crafting, for obvious reasons, will completely change the game. Not only will we finally get blueprints, this is also the moment where we can step away from the dreaded Tier 0 item recovery, in my opinion. Being able to craft your lost gear will automatically add a cost to them in terms of raw materials needed to produce them. I'm very excited to see crafting hit the game in 2026, as it is also a cornerstone needed for an even bigger system, base building. While it's not mentioned anywhere, and thus might not even release in the upcoming year, it's still a good step towards it. I'll definitely keep my eyes and ears open for any information about base building in the upcoming year. So this year we got our third star system called Nyx, but we only got Levski at the moment. We know CIG is adding more and more to the lore of Star Citizen as we move along the development timeline. And now they are adding the new Genesis planet and environment building tech to it. We'll see it first implemented on Nyx 1, coming in early 2026, according to the latest information. And although I think it will look absolutely stunning, I'm already hearing my GPU cry in the PC to render all those beautiful new environments they showed us at CitizenCon in the past 2 years. All in all, I think I would give 2025 a solid 8 out of 10. It was the best year for Star Citizen so far. Just look at the absolute record-breaking funding we got this year. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like we made massive steps towards a 1.0 release, and I'm very excited for what the new year will bring. Thank you for watching, and please leave a like and maybe even subscribe to the channel. See you in 2026.